Hello and welcome back to Lessons in Attachment. My intention today is to talk through some really subtle ways that abandonment wounds can show up in your day-to-day life. There may be times in your day-to-day where you're feeling low, you're feeling anxious, you're losing yourself, and you haven't yet made the connection that a core wound is really being activated. I believe that if you can recognize that, that is going to help you to manage the pain that is being triggered in your day to day. So when you want to self-soothe, when you want to calm yourself down in the moment, it's going to be much easier to do if you're able to recognize the subtle ways that your abandonment wound is being activated. And at the end, I will give you kind of an intervention, a tool that you can take away to put into practice when you find yourself in real time experiencing that core abandonment wound being triggered. What I tend to find is that the way that the abandonment wound shows up in the day-to-day can really create a lot of anxiety, low mood, self-doubt, and you don't realize that it is because that abandonment wound has been triggered. And instead, you feel like it is about the situation that's going on in front of you. And today's episode is about supporting you to recognize when your abandonment wound is activated in the not so obvious ways. It's a good place to start to think about what is an abandonment wound. And the abandonment wound is essentially a deep, old fear of being left, forgotten, not chosen, unloved. And for many of you, it comes from a time in your life when you didn't feel so secure. Maybe that was in past relationships, maybe that was in your childhood. And now it gets reactivated in situations that might not actually match the original situation. Some of you will not have made the connection between what you're experiencing today and what you've been through in the past. Okay, so let's go through some subtle ways that your abandonment wound may be showing up in your day-to-day life. Perhaps one of the most common examples that people share with me is the sort of interaction of texting, messaging people. You send a message, they don't reply immediately or for hours, and you find that your brain starts to go into this overthinking mode. And often, if there is that abandonment wound, what you're going to see is that your thoughts are automatically going into they've lost interest, they're going to leave me, they're pulling away, I did something wrong. So your perception of what you're experiencing is that it is in some way that you're going to be abandoned. Another subtle way is when perhaps your partner or someone close to you needs some space. Maybe they are quiet today, or they're distracted, or they want a night to themselves, even though they don't have any plans. And to you, when it comes to your wound, that's going to feel like rejection, abandonment, and you'll feel the urge to fix it, to overthink it, to question it, to apologize, to push, to ask for reassurance. And as well as the physical feelings that you experience in terms of the anxiety, the thoughts will be very similar. They want space because they don't love me anymore. They want space because they don't want to spend time with me. They'd rather spend time with somebody else. Your thoughts are a really key giveaway here. Another example is in your friendships. You might see that, in group chats, again, someone not really replying. If plans get made without you, you may really see it show up, this kind of fear that people don't want you. They don't want to be your friend. They're going to stop being my friend. They like each other more. Your friendships, if they meet someone else, you might find that you get this sort of experience of like almost jealousy. And that can often be the sign that there is an abandonment wound that is being triggered in that moment. At work, it can be really subtle. If you see a conversation going on without you, or there's going to be work drinks, this can be friendships as well. There's going to be a gathering that you are invited to, but you can't attend. You may well find that you really fear that they're all going to become this like really close friendship group and you're going to be pushed out. So you can really see that one of the key signs, whatever it's happening, is this idea of people leaving me, that cognition, those thoughts go in that direction. And in any situation, one of the really subtle ways that it shows up, or not so subtle, but the thing is, it can be really obvious. In other ways, it can be so subtle, is the people pleasing, because sometimes it can just be so habitual. It can seem like it's just kindness. You say yes when you want to say no. You're not even always bending over backwards. Sometimes you are, but sometimes it is just from this kindness that you check in with someone, you ask how they are, you offer them a drink, whatever it is that you do. But actually, although they're kind things to be doing, what makes them subtle is that you don't even realize that sometimes it is to get their acceptance, it's stop being rejected, it is to not be abandoned. Sometimes we're not doing things because we want to, but because we are trying not to face rejection. They can be really tiny daily moments. For someone with an abandonment wound, they they are strategies to keep you safe, to keep it so that you're liked, to keep it so that you fit in. Ask yourself, what are the most subtle things that I'm doing? What are the subtle ways that my abandonment wound gets triggered? Before I give you the intervention for you to take away this week, I just want to let you know that Becoming Secure is back, round 6. It's now a 6 week, it's 6 week now. Immersive CBT-based course designed to help you lift anxiety, low mood, low self-esteem. If you are absolutely fed up and tired with being hijacked by old patterns, you feel really ready to learn tools to feel good enough, confident, to be more fulfilled in your relationships in your life, then this course is made for you. We will be looking after your abandonment wound. We will be making it so that these daily triggers, these daily experiences don't get you stuck in such a loop, in such a hole. If you want to come and join me for this next round, go to the link in the description and join Becoming Secure. Okay, so how do we begin untangling this? Let's give you this intervention. Here's the shift that I'm going to want you to practice. Instead of obsessing over what it means every time you're triggered, I want you to start noticing what's happening. Start noticing the sequence of events instead. So when the wound is triggered, when your abandonment wound gets triggered, an urge shows up. For example, someone doesn't reply to your text. That's the trigger. Then you feel an urge to double text, to panic, to replay what you last said, to check your text. Or your partner goes quiet, trigger. And then you feel an urge to start people pleasing, apologizing, even picking a fight. When you see it this way, when you see, okay, so there's a trigger and there's an urge, instead of what's wrong with me, instead of what does this mean about them, instead of overthinking and obsessing, it's simply a process. There's a trigger, then I have an urge. Once you notice that urge, you create space that you don't have to act on it. Instead, you recognize there's an urge because my core wound, an abandonment wound, is being activated, it's being triggered. And whenever that happens, whenever your core wound is activated, it's opened up. And we then have an old urge to fix it, to put the plaster back on, to feel okay again. I need to do anything to not be abandoned. And then we follow the trigger, we follow the spiral. And what we are here to do is actually to come back to the wound with self-love, with understanding. That's the big shift here. You notice the trigger, you notice the urge, and then you can go and be with the wound and befriend the wound. Because at the moment, well, it's trigger, urge, act out, and then we have to make up for that, and then we're full of regret for that, and we follow that path. This is about taking a new path. When you're able to come back to the wound, and you can use this with other wounds, to be honest, it doesn't even just have to be the abandonment wound. Once you start noticing that sequence of events, you can practice naming it in the moment instead of going straight into that spiral. My wound has been triggered, and now I feel an urge. It sounds simple, but it's so incredibly powerful. It gives you perspective. You stop confusing the wound with reality. And from there, you give yourself space to ask, do I want to act on this urge or soothe myself first? So why not, the next time you are waiting on a text or someone feels distant or you notice yourself shrinking at work, instead of asking what's wrong with me, why is this happening, why me? Instead, you can name it and say, this is my wound. Here's the urge to follow it, to spiral. That awareness is where your freedom truly begins. That is starting to become more secure. If you want more support with making this shift stick, come and join Becoming Secure. I know that so many of you understand this and you have the logic, but you don't know how to feel it or put it into action. And one of my core principles of Becoming Secure is to support you to close the head-heart gap when you have the logic, but you don't yet feel it. We have a whole module in that, in fact. I really hope you found this helpful. If you are watching on YouTube, I would love it if you shared with me that you're here, that you got any takeaways, whether you just like it or you actually share in the comments, because as I've said, my YouTube has a very small audience and it makes it worth it for me to keep posting here when you guys comment. So I would really appreciate that. And listen, if you can go to the effort to subscribe, I mean, so grateful. I'll be back here very soon.